room on the third floor of Town Hall, and a virtual auction is available to meet. And the link is on the agenda, which I believe is on the town website as well. All right, so start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So the citizens' requests or comments. Not seeing any citizens present. I'll move on to the committee members' comments. Start with Becca. Any comments?
Amy and I went on last Monday.
Yes.
To the Muni or.
Sorry, you guys can unmute your mics and you won't get feedback anymore.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Amy and I went to the Muni Ops, I believe, meeting last Monday and presented. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry?
It was Muni Regs. Muni Regs. To talk about the article that we are submitting, and it went really well.
So. Okay.
That's good.
Yes.
Were there any questions about it being an amended article for what was in the warrant?
Yeah, so and I'm trying to read my handwriting, which unfortunately I have a tough time doing. I think, Amy, you can also remind me if you remember to give update to FinCom, can't change something in warrants. So
okay.
I think as long, they were just concerned that the article we've presented, if there are any changes, do they change the actual article, which we said they don't, and they were already, I believe, approved by town council. We just had to vote on them at our next meeting, so they felt much better with that.
Okay. Yes, and I've talked to them. We can't change what's in the warrant, but we need to introduce it on the floor of town meeting.
Okay.
So that's my understanding. All right. Anything else? Okay. Cynthia, any comments?
If you make the motion as the chair, you can include what's in the warrant is kind of like coming soon at your local theater. It's a trailer.
Yes.
But the person who makes the motion, that's what counts. So if you have an amendment, you can just include it.
Okay.
Also, you don't have to make 168 copies anymore. Whatever we decide here that you're going to do, I would say as soon as possible, the first week of April, get one copy to the Finance Committee because they're putting together the book. And if they have one copy, then they can put them in the book so that when the members the reps get their book, it'll be in the appendix.
Okay.
So they'll have it 2 weeks before town meeting. Because, I mean, usually that's correct advice, but now that they're doing the book, it used to be town manager's office put the book together for the selectmen select board, and they would mail it out, but any of the other committees could just put their paperwork in that same envelope. But now that the FinCom's taken over, they want all the backup material in the book. So that'll be more convenient for you and less expensive or whatever for the town to just have it one place.
Cynthia, does that mean then when we go up to speak about this amendment, we can just say, you know, it's article, whatever article we are, please look in the back on page for the amendment?
Well, as you say, you can say something like, if you would please refer to page 123 as I explain, and then you won't get those, the perennial folks that say, why didn't I get this in advance? it's in the book, but let's be realistic. I think they said last night the book is up to about 400 pages. There aren't too many reps that are going to sit down and read 400 pages. But as long as we know where it is and it's in there, no one can dispute our right to proceed.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. And my goal is, if we approve this tonight, to send it to them tonight.
Yeah, they're actually, I was torn because they're doing their final voting tonight at the Jones School, but I am a voting member here, and as of right now, part of the quorum, so I feel I'm here, I do the most good and the least harm.
And it does look like Sandra has joined us. Hello, Sandra.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
All right.
I may have to leave early. I hope not, but if I have to give somebody a ride, I might have to leave. So I'll let you know.
Okay. And we may not go the full 2 hours. All right. Cynthia, any other comments?
No, I really not here often enough to be critical. I had a preliminary look at the paperwork that you handed out, and except for a couple of places, I don't have an issue.
All right.
We'll get to them eventually.
Okay. Amy, any comment?
I don't have any comment. No.
Okay. Teresa, any comment? All right. And Sandra, any comments?
No, it's done.
All right. And my only comment is I did not have an opportunity to speak with the attorney, and I think we'll want to discuss where we want to go from here. We have one more meeting before the town meeting, and I think we're somewhat tied. Our hands are tied by the state laws, so I think when we get to that point, we would like to have some discussion. All right. So next is the final review and vote on the Charter Review Committee bylaw article as amended in Appendix B. So this is Appendix B.
Larry,
Yes.
Article 5 is for approval of the meeting minutes.
You are absolutely right, and I realized that as I was saying it. Approval of the Charter Review Committee minutes for the 3/9/23 meeting, which is Appendix A. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 20, is this February 23rd?
3/29.
No, today's 3.
I'm sorry, 3/9.
3/9.
Okay. Hey, do I hear a second? Okay, Teresa did second it. But Teresa, I do think you're on mute. Okay. All right, thank you. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
I just have a question. We're looking at a... Oh. For some reason, I have agenda item 5. Oh, we approved the meeting for 2/23, and now we're approving the minutes from March 9th. I got it. I was a little off.
Okay. Any comments? Okay, we'll take a vote by acclamation unless there's any opposing, and then we'll take it individually.
I'm going to have to abstain because I was not at the entire meeting.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to abstain, Larry. I was not in attendance.
All right. Thank you. Actually, since we have a couple of abstentions, I'll go around and ask. Becca, what's your vote?
Yes, approve.
Yes, to approve. Amy, your vote?
Yes.
Okay. Teresa? Your vote?
Yes.
And the chair also votes yes to approve the minutes of 3/9/23. All right. So, number 6 is the final review and vote on Charter Review Committee bylaw article as amended. It's Appendix B. We did discuss this at the last meeting, and I made the changes that we discussed and also corrected the references. The prior way it was written, it referred to the charter, which is not correct. We're not making a change to the charter. We're making a change to, well, actually, in addition to the bylaws. And I also added in from, originally we had a charter amendment to establish the committee as a standing committee with a 2-year term and describing the membership, which had not been included in the in our bylaws. But I thought that was an important part that we needed to include, and I just missed moving it from the charter amendment to the bylaw amendment. So that is now 11-1. Wait a minute.
No, 11-2.
11. I'm sorry. 11-2. Membership of the committee. So, are there any questions or changes that anybody saw that is needed for this bylaw amendment or addition? And this is what we would send to the Finance Committee to include in the appendix of the warrant.
I think this looks great.
Okay, if there's no suggested changes, can I get a motion to approve the bylaw amendment in Appendix B?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
The only discussion I would have is in section 11-4 limitations. Am I looking at the right? No. 11-3, the last 2 words, town attorney, is that what it says, town attorney? It doesn't say town council?
Certainly could change it. That's just
No, but if it already says town attorney, there's no, I mean, I'm quibbling. But we tend to call the town attorney town council. But they may not have, in the 1970s, they may not have called him town council.
I think that was my using that term, town attorney.
Yeah, and when we say town council, we're not talking about a person, because traditionally it's a firm, and there are different members that have different specialties, and they're all referred to as town council. The person at town meeting, we call him town council. The person at the liquor hearings is called town council. I think it's. Those senior moments they keep mentioning in those commercials. But I think it's a tradition that we say town council. But if it says town attorney in the original material, I don't see, it's not important enough to change.
It's, I don't think that it's in any original material. It was my use of the word. So I have no problem changing that to town council.
Yeah, it just happens to be what the firm is referred to.
Yep.
Even though it's council as if it were one person.
No, that makes sense. Council encompasses multiple, whereas attorney just seems like singular.
Yes.
Yeah.
The warrant, I'm sorry, the charter also refers to it as town council.
Okay,
Definitely.
all right.
That's where I saw the dissonance, as counsel in one form and attorney in the other.
I think we can agree to amend that word and still approve this tonight just with that one, you make that one change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I still think we
'Cause
can forward it on.
It's a word thing. It's not a,
It's not material.
we're not changing what it relates to. We're just changing what we call it.
There's no change of intent, it's only a label.
Correct.
We could even do for the town attorney / counsel. I think it's really splitting hairs.
Yeah, I think if we just change the word to council, we've covered ourselves.
Yeah,
We're fine.
I'm fine with that. Any other recommendations for changes?
Larry, I don't have a recommendation per se. I do have a question, maybe for clarification. It might have been discussed at the last meeting, but I wasn't in attendance, I was away. So I know we've discussed this, this bylaw. My only question is on the membership of the committee. When everyone is serving for 2 years, is there gonna be a full 2 years for every member at the same time, or is there gonna be some staggered, some staggering of terms? Because otherwise the whole committee would turn over at the same time, which I think would be a little bit difficult in respect to everyone starting fresh and not having any idea what they're doing. So, I think those of us that have been on the committee for a while can appreciate, the pain of the learning curve at the beginning, and if everybody's turning over after 2 years.
We had
I didn't know if there was any discussion of this.
We had discussed this at length at a couple of previous meetings. And if I recall, the plan was for staggered. Some people might only be on town meeting for 1 year and not be on town meeting the next year, so they couldn't be on the committee.
Right. I think some staggering would kind of naturally,
Yes.
through attrition, happen. I think the issue with starting the committee with a staggered term is that then some you have to choose precincts to get only a 1-year term and other precincts to get a 2-year term, and I don't think that would be agreeable.
I think we left it that we didn't want to get too in the weeds with this, but the idea of this was that we knew you have at least 2 years to get the work done, because it takes about a year to figure out what you're doing. And then this at least laid the groundwork for the committee. So we just didn't want to get too in the weeds with how long and staggering. We just wanted to lay the groundwork, I think, if I recall.
Yeah, I believe that's accurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might happen that there's all turnover, but I think it's a distinct possibility, but most likely wouldn't happen.
I agree. I think,
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, right now, we're all 1-year terms, and it doesn't seem to have happened that everyone turns over at the same time, so I would think naturally, some people will stick it out, or some people are on their 2nd or their 3rd year of their term, so as long as membership is changing, I think there'll at least be some people staying over every year.
no, I agree that there are people that don't run for election, people that drop out, people that may serve on this committee for 1 year and then leapfrog to the FinCom or something else. Mm-hmm. Also, the wording, it says for terms of 2 years. It says terms. So you could serve a 2-year term and then serve another 2-year term.
We didn't want to limit it.
Right. No, so I think this actually covers every possibility.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Right. Can I get a motion to approve the bylaw addition as amended?
With the change to counsel from attorney.
Right, that's the amendment
That's covered by
piece.
as amended.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
All right. I will take, because I do think this is an important vote, individual votes. So, Becca,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Sandra,
Yes.
and the chair also votes yes. So, all right, I will make that one change and get this to the FinCom tonight. All right, now we have number 7, item 7, finalize the draft article for charter review, Article 7, Representative Town Meeting, Appendix C. So this is all of the changes, I hope, that we had discussed incorporated into Section 7. And I was hoping that we could get a vote on this tonight, and if approved, it would be, well, it's now in the form of an article to go to the Select Board. It will not be in this town meeting warrant unless they decide to open up a special town meeting within the regular town meeting, is my understanding of it.
They don't have enough time for that.
Yeah, we have 70-something articles.
Yes.
Amy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just, we're missing some of the changes that we've discussed in Article 710, 711, 712, 713, and 714.
Okay.
I was,
Go through them if you want.
well, before we
Yeah.
get there, I'm still at the beginning of this. I know we had discussed, and I had brought up at a previous meeting, the question of, we have 2 town meetings every year. We have the annual town meeting, and then we have the quote-unquote special town meeting, which isn't special. And if that is the way the town is going, we're so big, this is our form of government, and it requires 2 meetings a year, I still would like to see some sort of that it gets put on the books as there is a second town meeting every single year. It can be canceled if there is not business to be done. But better to be on the books than to not be, and then we never know when it's going to be. Because I feel like as we recruit town meeting members and we say, oh, it's not that big of a lift, in your first few years, it's just one, the month of May, basically, every Monday and Wednesday. But in reality, that is not the case. In reality, we do a fall or winter town meeting. So, and I don't know whose responsibility it is, but if we're putting verbiage in here, I'd like to at least make sure our verbiage.
It says the Select Board may call a special town meeting at any time. Do you want a date like the first month?
Yes.
Okay, that's impossible. I've also been a selectman. Because the reason that they're having the special town meeting, we have to time it between free cash and the state setting our tax rate, and that's a movable thing.
Target, okay.
Yeah, and it depends on why we're having it. If there's something that we have to have, a lot of times recently, we've had to do it because we've gotten, like the last one, we got $5 million from the state for the schools. We had to spend that within, say, 90 days. So it's usually, the specials are usually partly what's left over, and or we as town meeting reps said, we're not ready for this one, and come back in the fall. But a lot of it is to meet grant and state funding sources. They have rules when the money has to be spent by, when it has to be allocated, and sometimes it's September and sometimes it's December. So it's a one time I don't know if you were there, Larry, originally the auditorium was not air conditioned, and we had to have a special in August. People were passing out. The fire department had to bring giant fans, and it was a fiasco. But the next town meeting, we voted to air condition that room. But so specials are, and as someone, I think it was you that just mentioned, if they wanted to have a special within the annual, and that would be in May. So the annual is burned onto the calendar, but the special is floating.
Okay.
And it's because of these government regulations from the state and from the feds. And they give you you're getting the money on September 1st, and it has to be spent by November 30th. They're very tight, because they want that money back if you're not going to use it immediately. There's no savings account for these kinds of things. It has to be spent, and if you document it and you don't spend the whole grant, then what's left goes back. They're getting, I think because people were so sloppy in the old days with government funding, free money, that now the government is stamping down on all of these limits. So why it's, as a recruiting tool, it sounds like a good idea. From a governing aspect, it won't work.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take the vote. Becca, how do you vote to, we did have a motion in a second.
Didn't someone have some questions about like 9, 10, 11?
Yes, Amy had questions about.
I'm sorry.
I mean, she had more than one question.
Yes, she did. All right. Amy, do you want to?
Yes, so on our February 9th meeting, we discussed section 7-10, and we discussed two different options for how we wanted to change that line, and the meeting minutes say we did not reach an agreement on the section, and we would discuss it again. And then in section 11, 12, 13, and 14, we did agree on changes, but those don't seem to have made it into the draft that you sent out.
Okay. So why don't we start with 7-10, and what was the area where we disagreed?
Okay. So let me just pull up so I can read the language. So 7-10 is it's called town meetings generally, and okay.
The notes say discussion of a sentence that's, quote, a lesser number may organize temporarily and may adjourn from time to time.
And our option number 1 to change that was to change it to,
quote, but a lesser number may meet temporarily and may adjourn from time to time, but may not vote on town business. And then option number 2 was to just strike, but a lesser number may organize temporarily and may adjourn from time to time.
Okay, and I do remember a considerable discussion about at least the one time where they did meet.
It's one time in 40 years.
Yes.
So I don't think it's a huge thing. That happened to be the death of the FinCom chair's wife. And the feeling was has a vital role in town meeting, and it might be very hard on him to go from Farley's to town meeting. But it's a very rare occurrence, and there is a vice chair. The world does, unfortunately, for those of us who lose family members, the world just keeps moving. I can't call the IRS and say my brother died, so I'm going to be late this year. There's obligations that we have to meet with a stiff upper lip.
So are you then recommending we just strike it?
I think that Amy said there was considerable discussion. I think striking it is not going to harm the way the town does business. And it might allay some people's feelings that there might be some rogue group of town meeting reps that would meet in the parking lot and change the world.
So can I get a motion to strike that from that?
I'll submit a motion to strike, but a lesser number may organize temporarily and may adjourn from time to time.
Second.
So, can I just say one thing before?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know you made a motion, Becca. I guess my concern is that we already voted on this. The time before that, we did. We had, because I have those changes that you have, we had voted to accept those changes.
We just discussed them. There wasn't actually a vote on those.
I thought we had voted to accept the changes we had made up to that point. And then we stopped. I could be wrong. I thought we had, not the last meeting because I was not in attendance. I thought we had voted to accept the changes we had made up to that point. So maybe I was wrong.
I'm looking at the meeting minutes, and I took the meeting minute, so I have them on my computer, and I don't have any that we made a motion on it. I think we left off on the end of partway through 14, and we said we'd pick up discussion next time.
Right. And I can confirm that too, because that's what I have in my notes as well.
Okay.
I don't think I was at that
So
meeting.
So is there any, so we have a motion on the table that's been seconded to strike, but a lesser number may organize temporarily and may adjourn from time to time. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Okay. So I will go ahead and take an individual vote.
I vote yes.
Becca, yes. Cynthia?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Sandra? She seems to have been waylaid, but the chair will vote yes.
So it's 5-zip?
So,
I would say one abstention.
okay. Maybe
She's probably looking for the minutes.
I'm sorry, are you waiting for me?
Yes, we were just taking the vote.
My thing was clicked off. Yes.
Okay, all right, and the rest of us also voted yes, so, great.
Before we move on from C7-10,
Yes.
and I may have dreamt this, did we discuss shall send the notices by mail? I don't recall. I thought we discussed, again, thinking 10 years ahead, that maybe mail will not be as, maybe there will be a different way of communication. But I don't recall, and Amy, you probably know better than I would, I don't recall.
I don't remember discussing it, and I don't have it written down in my notes that we discussed it.
Okay, it must have been a dream then.
You have interesting dreams.
I don't have anything in my notes about that, but I think we've generally left the notification pieces for the town clerk alone, because we haven't been able to speak to the town clerk, and some of those things are driven by, you know, the laws that she needs to follow.
Well, the only reason I bring this up is, like, so this state, it has to be done by mail versus leaving it up to the town clerk to make a decision on how to communicate information out. So to me, this is more, I'm blanking on the word, limiting than if we just struck the word and said, send the notices at least 7 days, and that opens up for the town clerk whatever works for her for the position.
Okay.
Does anybody, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has a thought.
Well, I don't have email.
How would you word it?
I don't have email. I still depend
I
on.
wouldn't make any changes without discussing it, without having Stephanie have some input personally. I think if we were gonna just, you know, change this, we should have probably discussed it previous. I understand where you're coming from, Becca, but I think some of these things, the mail, I don't know.
Well, everyone has the ability to get mail.
Correct, and Cynthia doesn't have email, so I don't know if we would put some kind of burden on town clerk to say, all right, you know, 5 people have, you know, don't have email, and then the rest do, which are gonna get what type of, you know, who's gonna get what kind of notification. They probably just stuff all the envelopes, print out the labels, and boom.
I think in a couple of years, because in a couple of years we're going to be able to pay all our bills and get everything we can get from the clerk's office on a computer. And also the FinCom has brought up the fact that just mailing out the book this year, last year it cost $10 a rep. And this year the book is going to be twice as thick. Mm-hmm. So eventually, I think the clerk and the finance committee and the select board are going to have to decide on some other method. And but I don't know whether that's 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line.
Yeah, and I mean, again, my idea is not to put something else in here, but to take that word out, because in 5 or 10 years, if the mode of communication is different, it doesn't limit then the clerk to have to mail it. Again, if the clerk is going against the charter then, by not mailing.
Well, at that point, the selectmen can change, the select board can change the charter.
I guess I have a thought though about that, changing it, is that every town rep has to have an address in order to be a town rep. But if you do not indicate by mail, then and they change that and stuff, some reps may not have the means, you know, to.
Well,
so I'm kind of feeling like we should keep it just exactly what it is. And if in the future it looks like it needs to be changed, maybe, you know, review it then. But I think right now, I think it makes sense to keep it by mail.
When town meeting was virtual, the town had to come up with solutions for people like me. Some town meeting reps who don't have computers went to relatives' homes to participate. I don't have any relatives that have this either. I mean, they have it on their phone. So there were at least 3 of us that was set up here in town hall in rooms with computers so that we could participate. So I wasn't the only dinosaur. But I agree with Teresa. Why don't we just leave it and then find out in 5 years what happens? Because if the town clerk appeals to the Board of Selectmen and they have the power to submit an article to change the warrant like they did to change selectmen to select board, this committee doesn't have to do everything.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Anything else in section C710 that I missed, Amy?
No.
Okay. All right. How about section C711?
Yes, so in C711, we changed the order of how things happen at town meeting. So our proposed amendment says, our changes start in the second paragraph to say the first order of business at the organizational town meeting shall be the election of the deputy town moderator. They shall be elected in the manner set forth in section C7-4 of this charter. The second rule of business at the organizational meeting shall be the adoption of rules and procedures governing the conduct of the conduct of the representative town meeting. The third and final order of business at the organizational town meeting shall be the election of chairpersons and clerks for the precinct delegations and making committee appointments. Each precinct delegation shall elect a chairperson and clerk. A quorum of precinct representatives must be present for the election of these officers, and the candidate who receives the greatest number of votes shall be deemed elected.
And I recall that too, because I'm the one that makes the motion every year to change the order to what was just said.
Yeah, I have all those same notes as Amy just read.
Yeah. The first order becomes the third order, and the second becomes the first, and the third becomes the second. So that those of us who have a quorum and know how to get the business done quickly can finish and leave. And for the folks that want to spend the night at the middle school jawing about their neighbors' fences or whatever they talk about while they wait for a quorum, because my precinct has sometimes sat there for an hour waiting for precinct 1 to get their act together.
I had one additional, I don't know if you said this, Amy, and I missed it, but that final sentence said the town clerk shall notify town meeting representatives of the organizational meeting at least 7 days before it meets. The committee assignments will be made at this time. We added that.
So yeah, so I had put, in my notes, I had put it in number 3. So it says,
okay.
Third and final order is election of chairpersons and clerks for the precinct delegations and making committee appointments.
Okay.
Okay, and Teresa, did you have a comment?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I too had in my notes, the last sentence was going to be committee assignments will be made at time. That's how I have it written.
Yeah.
In my notes.
Because it's really not committee appointments, it's really, I think we talked about committee assignments because a lot of, yeah.
That's what I have as the very last sentence.
The last one, right.
And the last line is exactly what you want. It just says notify.
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to say that again?
Yeah, just how you want that, like, so an additional sentence at the end after shall be deemed elected.
Yes, was committee assignments will be made at that time.
Okay. So, Amy, you'll have these in the new minutes, these changes? Okay, so I think I missed one of the minutes when I was going back and making all the changes, because I do recall that discussion, but, all right. Anything else in C7-11?
So I think she was, the last one was 12.
Okay, so we're at C7-12. Any changes to that?
Yes, are we gonna vote on each one like we did with 10, or do we wanna vote on them all at the end?
So,
Why don't we make her last change, whatever that is, if we agree to it, then we can just have one motion for, was it 10, 11, 12?
10, 11, and 12, yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
just group them.
yep, sounds good.
Excellent. Okay, in C7-12, we wanted to strike the words, but may receive reimbursement for the actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of their duties. As we discussed, no one was getting reimbursed for babysitting for going to town meeting.
Yeah, this,
Okay.
if it stays the way it's written, you could justify almost anything. For instance, my cab fare to and from town meeting. And, I mean, this is a volunteer position, I shouldn't be paid. If it costs me money to get to town meeting, well, I mean, we don't want people starting to submit mileage.
Right, right. All right, so people pretty much agreed to that. I'm not taking a vote, but that we can then move on. All right, all right.
I thought Amy felt better if we voted on these
Oh, no, I'm
changes.
trying to do them all at once. That
Oh,
would be
okay.
Okay, so
great.
C7,
We're taking a note.
C7-13.
Yep, so in C7-13, we made, or discussed two changes. We added to the list of people who needed to be at town meeting, the town accountant, because we felt like we really couldn't function without the accountant being there.
Right,
And then at the beginning of the next sentence, we added the phrase, if they are not an elected town meeting representative, comma, these officers shall have all the rights and privileges of a town meeting representative, except they shall not have the right to vote in any article. Just to clarify that if any of these people are town meeting
yes,
representatives, they do have the right.
okay. Any discussion of that?
It sounds a little, they're taping this, so I won't use a colloquialism. But wouldn't it be better that these officers should have all the rights and privileges of town meeting representatives, except they shall not have the right to vote on any article unless they are town meeting representatives? Rather than have it at the beginning? The sentence sounded a little top-heavy.
Everybody
Does that say what you want to say?
accepted?
Yeah, I think it's perfect. So, so I'm gonna just change it to, just wanna make sure I'm getting your language right. So at the end of the sentence, unless they are elected town meeting representatives.
Excellent.
Yep,
Or unless they are an elected town meeting representative.
yeah, I think.
And elected,
And
yes.
elected, right.
Okay.
All right, C7-14.
In paragraph B, we changed, in sub-paragraph 1, I don't have the original language in front of me, so I'm just gonna read what I had written down to change. The committee shall consist of one member elected annually by and from each precinct delegation at the organizational town meeting, and 9 members who shall be appointed by the moderator from the registered voters of the town. The moderator shall appoint 3 people each year for 3-year terms. I don't know if someone has the 7-14 in front of them.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure what part of that.
Are you eliminating something?
it just sounds like she's revamping the paragraph. So, Amy, is this the one that starts with a committee on finance and taxation which shall prepare the budget article?
So let me see.
And then-
So it's, Yeah.
Okay, and then it goes, this committee shall consist of 9 members who shall be appointed by the moderator from the registered voters of the town and 1 member elected annually by and from each precinct delegation at the organizational town meeting. The 9 appointed members shall serve for 3-year terms. The moderator at the first organizational town meeting held under this charter shall appoint 3 committee members for 3-year terms, 3 for 2-year terms, and 3 for 1-year terms. All members of the committee will serve until the replacements are duly qualified, but no member shall serve for more than 9 cumulative years. Any member of the committee who shall be elected to town office or appointed to a committee or board shall cease to be a member of the committee. We've crossed a couple of things out. A member who is no longer a resident of the town shall cease to be a member of the committee. Members absent from 1/3 of the regular meetings in any calendar year may be removed by a 2/3 vote of the other members present and voting. The committee shall choose its own officers. The members of the committee shall serve without salary.
Which is what it says, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but she doesn't have that one.
Yeah, I have that we removed the section on, it ends with annually by and from each precinct delegation of the organizational town meeting. And then starting from the 9 appointed members shall serve for 3 years. From there until it says for 3-year terms, 3 for 2-year terms, and 3 for 1-year terms. We removed that whole section because that was referring to the original setup of the charter, and it no longer applies
Right. And,
to what we do. Even though there's still staggered terms, it does not apply the way it's done here, because that was for the original charter.
Town council, when she looked at this, recommended taking out all of those references to the first time, because
Correct.
the first time was over 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So,
Okay, so Amy, is that what you had, basically that?
Yeah, that was the next thing that I had, was that whole line was, that whole next sentence regarding the moderating appointments was struck.
Okay,
That's what I have too.
Yeah.
I think so. I think we were just trying to clarify, because if you look at the original language, it starts with the committee shall consist of 9 members, and we're trying to say the committee shall consist of 1 member from each precinct, and 9 members who are appointed by the moderator. I think it's just trying to.
okay, so you just
Trying to make it clearer.
flipped that, yep.
Would it make sense if we said the committee shall consist of 18 members or however many members it is, and then explain how?
We shouldn't really say 18 because there's members from
There's
each
17.
precinct, and if the number of precincts change, then it would change that total of 18.
and
So we were trying
that
to
did
stay away-
happen.
Okay.
Right. So
There
we were
used to-
trying to stay away from naming, not naming, but noting a specific total number. So just saying 1 from each, or whatever it is, 1 from each precinct. That way we didn't get into, because if we say 18 and then the precincts change, go up or down, then we're gonna be, out of sync with what the charter says.
There's 8 precincts currently, plus 9 is 17. It has, town boards tend to have an odd number of members so that the votes aren't tied.
I think the
Yeah.
confusing part about this was it started with the moderator appointments, then talked about the precinct delegates, and then went back to moderator appointments. So we were trying to just change up the order so that all the moderator appointments were in one section, and it was easier to understand exactly who was on the board for the committee.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm good.
You're good.
that section out, and I think it's much clearer because the committee will consist of 9 members that basically are appointed by the moderator from registered voters of the town, and then 1 member elected annually by and from each precinct.
Yeah, but I think we flipped that.
What's that?
Yeah, So we recommended flipping it. So it would start with the committee shall consist of one member elected annually by and from each precinct delegation at organizational town meeting, and 9 members who shall be appointed by the moderator from the registered voters of town. The moderator shall appoint 3 people each year for 3-year terms, and then we struck the next sentence.
But if you look at sections 2.
Why would we keep that if the moderator will appoint 3 people each year for 3-year terms? That, I'm not sure why we would keep that in there.
If you,
Also, he has 9 appointments, but he or she, but they only 3 expire every year. So,
correct. So they're only going to appoint if there's a vacancy. So I don't think we need to put that. I think we just need to. The moderator has 9 appointments, and any current moderator is only going to be able to appoint from a vacancy. So they could appoint those 3, and if somebody were to leave early before their vacancy is up, before their appointment is up, they would have another vacancy for the remainder of those years. So I don't know if we really need to say that and, you know, make it more complicated again. It's just my 2 cents.
Sorry, I was, the problem is me, I was unclear. We were striking that language. Oh, no, we weren't, sorry. No, we were adding in the moderator shall appoint 3 people. So maybe we should just say the moderator appointments are for 3-year terms.
and that's what it says.
That's what it says.
Says the 9.
Shall serve for 3, yeah, it does. So if we just strike that, I mean, because it could be more than 3 if there's another vacancy, like Sandra
And if
said.
somebody moves or
Right.
someone quits, or we find out someone's not a citizen, that happened.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, the rules are pretty, you have to be a registered voter, so it gets tricky. My point is, in the other 3 standing committees, they do mention the moderator, and then they mention the precinct delegations. So just so that they're all parallel, we should do that here, which is what it says. We should have the members appointed by the moderator and then elected from the precinct delegation. That line is in the other 3. So I don't see the point of changing it for the FinCom. But I do definitely believe that the entire sentence that relates back to 1972 should be excised.
I
Just like-
agree with that, Cynthia. I think it also is, I think it flows better when you start with the moderator appointments, only because those are the longer appointments. And then the shorter appointments are the precinct delegation appointments. And it should be consistent with what the other committees do.
So,
But on,
Well, just to be clear, a municipal
number 2, 3, and 4 all say, committee shall consist of town meeting reps who shall serve blah, and then 1 member shall be appointed at large by the moderator. And 1 member shall be appointed by the chairperson of each precinct delegation.
do we want to use that language?
Because that's what, in number 2, 3, and 4, that's how it all says that it's the exact same language for muni regs, muni ops, and intergovernmental relations.
so the sentence that shall consist of 9 members who shall be appointed by the moderator, it's, in English, we have something called parallelism, and they should be similar. They should.
Okay, so,
Yes, but it's not
Moderator precinct, moderator precinct.
But it doesn't say moderator precinct. It says town meeting reps. It starts,
so
maybe we just add in This committee shall consist of town meeting reps who shall serve, I don't know how to do that. And then 9 members are appointed. Just that sentence is in every single other, under 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
So if we just make it parallel to what the other ones say, just correct the term for that. So basically it would say, wait, are they all 3-year terms or only the moderator appointments?
Only the moderator. The others are annual.
Okay. So is it, this committee shall consist of town meeting representatives who shall serve for terms of 1 year. 9 members shall be appointed at large by the moderator and shall serve 3-year terms.
I just don't know if we should change it just for the sake of changing it.
Yes.
I think it's just another change that we have to stand up and defend, and I don't see a.
Yeah, there might be other English teachers in the group. I think taking away the sentence that we're concerned about, that's 40 years out of date, is, gosh, boy, it's 50 years. Just eliminating the sentence from 50 years ago, and the rest of it, well, you've already made some other changes about the personnel board, but the rest of it should just stay, because we don't want to be accused of changing things for the sake of changing things. Just kind of pointless changes. I think people want to see a change that can be legitimately defended.
Something that's easy for them to follow, because we're going to have to stand up there and go through all this.
Yeah.
And it's not a pleasant process.
Well, maybe 20 of them will have actually read it, but they'll be listening. The rest of the body will be listening to those 20 nitpickers. And so the fewer nits they get to pick, the better.
Cynthia, we only need 2 nitpickers. You know that. Like, why did we have to change it when it's been fine? We didn't need to change the whole thing just for 1 sentence.
Right.
Okay.
So the one thing that I'm noticing in this, now that I'm looking at the other sections, is that on all of the other committees, they say the person shall be appointed by the chairperson, whereas FinCom says the person shall be elected from the precinct's delegation. Should that be different?
I don't think we.
In precinct 5, it was treated different in the way that the person, like, we held an election for that, whereas our chair just appointed with asking people and getting their input, but that was the only one we actually voted on.
Yeah, that's because according to the charter, that's the only one that we reps have a vote on. Everything else, the precinct chair does. But I've been in 2 precincts now, and there isn't a rush for these jobs. It usually is to the person who's already on a committee. Would you want to stay on the committee? Yeah, please. Because everybody else is like this.
Everyone else steps back.
Yes, it's so. I think the language in the charter should stay the way it is, and if a precinct chair wants to assert his or her rights to make all the other selections, that's fine. But in precinct 2 and precinct 3, so far the precinct chair has been much more democratic.
Yes.
And the fact is that it's more a persuasion. People say, well, what do I have to do? It's not a competition like it may have been in the past.
I'm now in 4 and I was in 5, and yeah, it's a begging process, I would describe, more than someone who's dying to do it, but I just thought it was weird how that's the only one that is different.
I will say that in precinct 2, the past town meeting, there actually was a competition for the charter review committee. We had took a vote.
I think when we think of a precinct chair, in the past, there was an assumption they had a certain amount of power. They actually used to count the votes and things like that. All of that's gone by the wayside. We have a machine that counts the votes. And so the precinct chair is basically responsible for getting our bodies in the seats. And I think in the present and even in the past, being a member of the FinCom was more prestigious than being, look at the paragraphs describing the FinCom. What are there, 5 of them? And everybody else gets a single paragraph. So this was considered, being on the Finance Committee was considered prestigious, and so there would be more of a competition. I know in my precinct, my new precinct, there was no competition. People have served on the Finance Committee, and they've served their 9 years. So we had to try and find a newbie that hadn't served. So I don't think, I think I've already said this, I don't think we need to change something for the sake of saying we changed something. I think getting rid of that old stuff from 50 years ago is important, so that this thing is a living document and not a dead bird.
All right, is everybody agreeable to leaving the language for that section as it was?
Can we read it over again? Because I have a lot of notes now all over this particular paragraph. I do want to make sure that we add, I don't know if we're...
Did you read it before?
Oh,
She wants it read again.
No, but this would be with Amy's changes.
With the change.
So literally, the only change is striking the third sentence that starts the moderator at the first organizational town meeting.
Yep.
That one sentence is struck.
Well, and we also struck the information about the personnel board.
Oh, sorry, yes, later down.
And we changed, we put in the word cumulative.
Cumulative, right, yes. Okay,
So
I'm okay now. That's what I have.
you're okay?
Yep.
Okay.
So have all the changes that you
That I
thought we
missed.
missed, Amy, have been fixed?
Yes, everything that we had discussed previously is now included into this.
So I think we can
Okay.
vote now.
All right.
I had one other change, I'm just trying to find, on that same, later on, it says, the paragraph that says the committee shall distribute a report to each of the town meeting representatives, and then I had something that was struck, the report shall state the total amount of the appropriations recommended on the entire warrant, and then we struck the rest of that sentence, and the
Yes.
approximate tax rate.
Yes, we're accepting that change.
Yeah, yes, that is in my, yep.
I lost my place. When I was looking,
It's been crossed out.
Okay. Thank you.
Laurie, I have one question before we vote on this.
Yes.
Per our new bylaws, aren't we supposed to be inviting, like, the town moderator to a discussion on this before we vote?
Yeah, but it has not passed yet.
Right.
Has not gone
Okay, so
before.
we pass it and then invite them to discuss it?
No, the
Is that what we're-
change this is part of our article for town meeting.
Oh, okay.
The bylaw hasn't been approved yet, so it's not in effect. And
We don't want to adopt it as our policy until it, I mean, we don't have to. If we're saying this is how we want to do things, it feels like we should.
Well, we also have the deputy moderator in attendance at our meeting, so I think that if there was something that was really out of I don't want to put pressure on Cynthia, but if there was anything really out of the realm of, this is crazy, maybe we shouldn't do it, she would weigh in and say, hey, maybe we should have the moderator review this.
I think the language that we're striking is language for something this moderator won't ever do, because it was only the first time that the charter was put in place.
It's archaic. Completely out of date.
So, but if there's a consensus that we want to ask the moderator to attend the next meeting.
Well, was he at the Muni Regs meeting?
Yes.
So he was at the public hearing.
That
Did-
was on the bylaw.
Yeah, this wasn't presented.
Well, then there'd be a hearing on this one eventually.
Okay.
Speaking for the moderator, the man is about meeting doubt.
I am sure. Okay,
Because none of his rights are being taken.
No.
no.
I'm
So-
fine with it, I want,
Okay.
you know, if we're saying we wanna like invite more people and be as open as possible, I just wanna make sure we're making a conscious decision to like,
Yeah.
say we're okay with moving forward with it.
It's a great thought, but we are not going against our own, like, because it's not passed, at least we're not going against anything right now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I actually want to do this in 2 votes. One would be to accept all of the changes that Amy just recommended for section C7-10 through
11, 12, and 13.
11, 12, and 13, and then take a vote on the whole article as amended to move to the select board. So, all right, so can I get a motion to accept the changes made to section C7-10, 11, 12, and 13?
And 14A,
And-
number 1,
Okay,
which is what we've been talking about.
okay, and 14.
So moved.
I guess it's B, number 1.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Sorry, who made the motion?
Becca made the motion and Cynthia
Larry. Thank you.
seconded. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and take a vote, individual. Becca?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
And Sandra?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. All right, can I get a motion to approve the
All the changes in Appendix C?
yeah, that's not, that Appendix C as amended can be sent to the select board as a warrant as an article for the next town warrant that it's available for.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a vote. Becca?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Sandra?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. All right. So we do have the problem, and as I said, I wasn't able to talk with the town council kind of about our role, and I think it was to invite him to come to a next meeting. It probably doesn't make sense for him to do that until after town meeting now, because we only have one meeting left before town meeting. But I did want to propose to this committee, and we've had discussions about this in the past, but given the limited scope of the Charter Review Committee, should we put a recommendation to the select board to have an elected charter commission so that they have the ability to make all of the changes that that we can't make.
I'll weigh in first on that. I don't agree with that. I think I've said that before. I don't think that's our role. The select board or any individual person can always request that that be done. They can put a petition forward, get the number of required signatures to do that, and start a election commission, request that. I just don't think it's our place as a committee. And I think it's really contrary to what we're doing here in terms of asking for 2-year terms for our, they're asking for a 2-year term limit on the Charter Review Committee. We're setting up bylaws for our committee, or, that's our intention. And then on the second hand, we're saying, we're contemplating going to the board and saying, well, you should set up a charter commission, which would essentially eliminate the charter review committee. So to me, it's contrary. They contradict one another, and I personally don't feel it's our place. It's something that either the select board or any individual citizen can do on their own.
This came up in earnest when I was on the board. I think it was my second term. And we went so far as to submit the charter to town council, and I think you have the redlined copy.
Yes.
The only reason you would have a charter review commission is if you were going to get rid of this charter and consider whether you write a new town charter, whether we have a city form of government, whether we get rid of elected town meeting representatives. There's a number of choices you have in Massachusetts as to how you run your city or town. And we got the red line copy, and there were 3 steps, and we, meaning myself and the chair, we couldn't get a quorum to agree to even the first step, which is pretty much what we're doing now, is just cleaning up the archaic, out-of-date language that applied in '72, but it doesn't apply anymore. And there's a very strong feeling in town about representative town meeting on both sides. There are people who love it, and there are people who would just as soon scrap the select board, have a mayor, and have a city council. And I guess the feeling was, why open that can of worms? What we have is working. Some people may feel it creaks a little, and it's a little slow. But when you look at towns around us that have switched to a mayor and a city council, they don't seem to be any more efficient than we are. They can do things quicker. It doesn't take 7 weeks to add money to the school budget. But the other feeling is that if you cede all your power to a city council of 7 or 9, you could go to the meetings and talk during citizen comments, but you don't have a vote. I guess you could recall those people, but the people still like the idea of, the Norman Rockwell standing alone in town meeting, voicing your opinion, even if some people are snoring during your presentation. So, but that's what a charter review, that's what a charter commission does. Their goal is to either preserve what exists or crash and burn and come up with something different. And I don't know the feeling of everyone in town. We know that some people justify it on the basis that we're getting less and less citizen participation. You go to town meeting, there's supposed to be 168 people there, there's 120. You go to the public hearings, I've been the only member of the public at most of the public hearings. True that many do watch them as they're repeated incessantly. People have said to me, oh, I saw this or I saw that. So one of the big motivators for changing the way we run our government is that there is less participation. But I don't think the cure for less participation is making participation less possible. That unless you're one of the 7 or 9 city councilors, if they commit a crime, you're the victim. At least at town meeting, you participated. Or at least you stood up and said, we shouldn't do this. But you're talking to someone this is the only form of government I've lived under. And there's people that have come here from other places where they feel city government worked fine. And we have almost 30,000 people. But that's the difference between what you folks have been doing is reviewing what exists, but not really changing it. Just cleaning it up, make it easier to understand, get rid of the anachronisms. But Charter Commission it will be an elected commission of 10 or 12 people, I don't know. The selectmen decide how many people it would be. It would more likely be politicians running for a political office again, and they each have their own agenda. It's at least a 2-year process, and we may end up at the very end coming back full circle saying what we've got now is fine. We've looked at everything else and yeesh. But if the Charter Commission does work for 2 years and come up with something different, that difference has to go to the whole electorate. They can't just convert us to a city and say, live with it. The fact that this thing has been around for over 50 years would seem to indicate that, on the whole, people seem to be satisfied. But I don't know. There may be a current growing. I think if you watch the citizen comment, maybe it's the same people all the time commenting, and I'm one of them. But with the city council, they can sit there and, file their fingernails while you're trying to make a sincere point about your right now, our neighborhoods are all represented in town meeting. Folks in West Stoughton and folks in South Stoughton where I live. With the city council, you may have, and this has been alleged in cities, that you seem to get a particular gender and race of counselor. And a lot of folks feel they're not being represented. But if you look around town meeting, most of us don't wear a sign about, whether we're conservative or Democrat or liberal, or some of us you can identify just by what we say all the time. But we've got a real melting pot in town meeting. I think even the people, there's people that when they get recognized, we go, inwardly we kind of groan. And that may be me when I'm recognized. But hey, I taught social studies and history, and I just think that trying to explain this to my relatives in Oklahoma, like, say what? You go to meetings and you discuss things, and we just call our counselor. And it's a unique part of American history, and I like being part of American history. But that's the difference between charter review and charter commission.
So let me just say, I agree with you. I think there is a divide in town. And I would not want to lose the representative town meeting that we have. I think it's the most democratic, other than just a regular town meeting where kind of everybody has the ability to vote, but.
Open town meeting.
Yeah, I think that it, like I said, it's much more democratic. It's maybe not as efficient as a city government, but I also think the concentration of power in fewer hands is not a good thing. But I am concerned that there are things, for example, I think it might make sense to lower the number of representatives per precinct, because we're not able to fill those seats right now. So to cut it to 12 or something like that.
Well, that would be a question that you could ask town council. Could we do something like that with just an article to our, and it's been done in other towns, like in Avon, they've cut the number of reps. Can we do that without having a charter commission?
So I've been told no. And when I read the state law, you know, it sounds like that, which is where that part of the bylaw comes from that says, let me just reread it. And so I find it frustrating that it really ties our hands. Sorry, here it is. Okay, so limitations. The Charter Review Committee may not propose any change in the charter, and this is the part that's state law, relating in any way to the composition, that's the number, the mode of election or appointment or terms of office of the legislative body, which is the representative town meeting, or the select board. The school committee is not actually in the law, or town manager.
We can't do it, but you can ask town council if a petitioned article from anyone, we used to have less town meeting reps. We had 6 precincts of 21, so we had less reps. How do we go from 6 to 8 to what we have now? I was on the board when we went from 7 selectmen to 5. Now, that was just a vote that was in town meeting, and then the town-wide vote. There was no charter commission. It was just a change in the composition. And it passed, and we had to have a new election, and only 5 people got elected. So it seems to me there's a way of getting the change that you want without going through an elected charter commission. Because just to eliminate, other towns around us have done that. They have decreased the number of reps because they, couple in Avon, they couldn't pass the budget because they couldn't get a quorum. So they lowered the quorum. So if other towns have done it, then they either are all operating illegally or they know something Stoughton doesn't. But we have changed the number of precincts. We have changed the number of members on the FinCom. When I started, it was 13. Now it's 17. We changed the length of term of the moderator just recently. It went from 1 year to 2 years, and that was just voted by the people in town at a general election. So that's something to ask town council. Could we decrease the number of representatives if the town as a whole votes for it?
The moderator's term, Cynthia, the Charter Review Committee actually proposed that as an article, so that came from us, and then we voted on it.
I think it really depends on who the town council is.
Pardon me?
I think it really depends on who town council is, because
I think a lot of it does depend on who town council is and how how narrowly they're viewing some of these rules.
Well, let's face it, they'd make a fortune if we had to have a charter commission, because they'd have to be at every meeting.
Right. So I think a lot depends on how narrowly they're viewing this, but there's certainly no reason that the select board members could not petition for a change in the number of precinct members, or perhaps even Stephanie, as town clerk, if she felt that we could not manage town meeting and, you know, we were not gonna have enough to meet the quorum, she could probably implement that, you know, that change through the select board with their help to get something to be voted on at some point.
We might want to get our hands on a copy of town meeting time and see if there's anything in there about decreasing the quorum.
The other thing, and this is something Carmel works on this. I worked on this with her a few years ago. But instead of, and again, I know we're just talking right now, but instead of lowering the number of reps, we advertise to get more reps. You know, we don't do a good job as a town of saying, hey, come join town meeting. These are the requirements. This is how much of an ask it is. And here's what you're doing your civic duty for the town. I think most people tend to fall into town meeting and don't know what they're doing the first year or second year. But, and again, I don't think it's the Charter Review's job to do the recruiting, but I do think that it's the town's job to do the recruiting. We don't advertise that, you know, we don't do a good job of letting people know, like, we need you. We need town meeting reps. Here's what it is. And, you know, you get a say in what's happening with your community.
Well, the election is Tuesday. I mean, how much advertising has been done? And we are upset about the turnout, but there are 2 openings on the school committee and there's 2 candidates. Eeny, meeny, miny, no choice. There is 1 choice on the Board of Selectmen. No one's running for Housing Authority. There's 1 choice for moderator. There's 1 choice for the Redevelopment Authority. My precinct did have 8 candidates, and you need 7. I don't know what about the other precincts.
My precinct has 1 person on the ballot, and we have not filled in my precinct in years. I think we're the smallest now. I think we have 11 members.
It's disturbing, and as you point out, we do need, I didn't know that the League of Women Voters had a candidates night. Where was that? I mean, I read the Suburban Shopper. Granted, I don't have social media. It wasn't posted. You know, I call what meetings are this week. They're very courteous and, you know, oh, it's the dinosaur, get out the meeting list. Pen and paper for Cynthia. And they give me the information. But it is true that now my niece, my nephew, and my niece-in-law are running again for town meeting. And that's how people, you know, their neighbor or a relative. And it's true that we, unfortunately, we're our own worst advertisement. Oh, I have to go to town meeting again and listen to blankety blank. Instead of saying, and what I say to people is, where else do you get to spend $122 million? Now, granted, most of the decisions are pretty much up or down, but you do get input in spending an enormous amount of money. And voting on, eventually we'll be voting on a new police station or voting on a new school or something, and we've built a new school and we're building a firehouse. Where else do you get to make decisions that are worth millions of dollars and affect thousands, in the case of Stoughton, tens of thousands of people? Mostly we just, all those government, all those politicians, but in Stoughton, you get to be the government. But I don't, we could talk all night about how do we drag them off their sofas to come out what could be maybe 5 to 10 nights a year to.
We need a sign-on bonus. That's what we need.
but we need.
Yeah, we just took out the money though.
Well, you know, listen. Some towns, well, they have open town meetings, but some towns they do a lottery They do a potluck dinner. One thing I like from a neighboring town is you don't know when your article's coming up. They have like a bingo barrel, and they put the article numbers in it, and they go like this. So Article 74 could be the first article. So if you've got a number, what happens in some towns is everyone shows up for the school budget, and once that's passed, sayonara, and you might need a new fire truck, and there's no one there to vote on it. So that's what they do. They shake it up a little.
Literally.
We used to have coffee and cookies, remember? And now we don't. That was nice.
Yeah, and people said, well, it was supposed to be a 10-minute break. It turned into a 20-minute break. But even though I don't drink coffee and I'm not supposed to eat cookies, maybe a bathroom break, I mean, 3 and 4 hours of sitting there can be a little, when you're older, I guess. And there's been, people have asked about bringing back childcare. If we want to have a demographic that isn't all over 70, we do need, and fortunately we are getting people coming and sitting there.
But it is difficult, and because I was involved in getting childcare when we first did it a few years ago, the difficulty now is you still got to get your kid, we don't end till 10:30, but you still got to get your kids home like by 9:30, 10 o'clock to get them in bed.
That's right.
So, and it would be nice if, I don't think, again, charter review, I don't think we have the ability to move town meeting to like a Sunday, the way they do it in Easton or other towns. They don't do it as late. And I do think that is it inhibits a certain demographic. Either they don't have childcare, or their kids are too young to stay home by themselves, or they have to get them home and in bed, and so they can come for the first hour and a half, but they can't stay to vote on anything late. So we do have barriers to town meeting. I don't know that charter review, we have a say in it. Select board does, though. And maybe it is something that the town looks at, because for us to get more people involved, we need to make it accessible for them.
Yes. Oh, I agree. And the fact that it runs until 10:30 and it used to run until 11, that impedes a lot of older folks who really don't drive at night anymore. So it works in both ends. Now, some towns do it Saturday afternoons, but then that's the Sabbath for some folks. And Sunday, I think you'd get some people screaming and yelling about that, not just because of church, but because a lot of the team sports are Sunday afternoon. There really is no perfect time, but could we make adjustments so that it isn't always, 7 to 10:30? Could it be different?
Yeah. I remember a few nights getting out at like 11:45.
Yes.
Yeah, because we suspended the rules to end at 10:30. Yeah.
No, it's. I think sometimes the people in charge, and I've been in charge, so I know that we do this. They think something they think is super important is equally important to everyone. And, oh, well, we don't have to come back they'll say, oh, we don't want to come back another night. Well, some of us, have to get up in the morning. And as you pointed out, if it ends at 10:30, maybe you're home at 11. The kids are a little hyper, so you've got to calm them down. Then you got to do your evening routine, and pretty soon it's tomorrow. Life is hard. Life is busy, and adding this to it, because I started when I worked full time. Granted, I don't have a spouse or children. Well, I had a classroom waiting for me, but yeah, it's difficult. Everyone has their own difficulty with the process. But when you think of 365 days a year and you think of 5 evenings or 6 evenings, when you are hassled and let's face it, some people are sitting at town meeting eating energy bars because they came directly from work to town meeting. So we have to decide each for ourselves, what sacrifice am I willing to take to be there when $122 million just flies by? I mean, we need to know so we can say, when someone grouses about their taxes, well, I was there when we discussed that, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people will say, well, I didn't realize that, because their lives are busy too. We all have, I mean, people look at me and go, well, you're retired. Well, I'm supposed to be somewhere else, and I'm here. And I'm not at home watching TV. I can't even have a cat, because the cat would probably go on strike. You're never home. So I can imagine children are the same way. But right now, with family members I have children that are, they're not even school age yet. So we have mothers-in-law and mothers and aunts taking a day or taking an evening so the kids can at least stay in the house and go to their own beds at a reasonable time. It's a balance. What are we willing to postpone or give up so that we can participate? And I think, no, I'm not a parent, but I think too, your kids seeing you participate is helping the next generation kind of get used to the fact that if I want things to be better, if I want to see improvement, I have to be part of that. What's that saying? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem?
Yep.
Correct.
They have to see, if we're telling our kids, now don't forget to recycle and don't forget to do this, and they see us throwing, you know, recyclables in the trash, or they see us tossing a cigarette wrapper out of the car window, kids recognize hypocrisy awfully quick. So it's going to be tough, and it's up to us, that those of us who do participate, when we're chatting with people and someone starts in on, I hate the water rates or the sewer rates, or I can't afford to live in Stoughton anymore, try to lower the temperature and say, this is what I've learned. Or someone who says, oh, the development in this town is awful. Well, apply for the planning board. You see the board meetings, one person applies or two people apply for these important positions that make, decide whether we live next to a condo community or we live next to a hog farm or whatever someone proposes. The zoning board of appeals, the people that are deciding, oh, well, should we let people build bigger than their lot, or should we let them do this, thus, and so? We need ordinary people who live in ordinary neighborhoods to have their, you don't have to be a builder, you don't have to have a contractor's license, you don't have to be an attorney. A lot of this is common sense. And I'm just making the meeting longer.
What I will try to do is get the okay for the attorney to attend our next meeting.
Larry,
Okay.
is he not answering you, or?
No, this was, I did not have, I was out of town last Thursday.
It's just
and
that-
that was me. It's
Okay, another committee
not-
mentioned that they're not getting a response to their phone calls, so it's important that chairs, at least, they have the right to contact town council,
Yes.
and that attention is paid. You don't have to be a member of the select board to get the opinion that you need to proceed. I mean, you're a volunteer. And this is why some people throw their hands up and say, I tried it, I couldn't get the information I wanted, I felt I was wasting my time. And we don't want to encourage that.
No, and I will, that was completely my schedule.
No, that's fine. I just want to make
Yes.
sure that there's not a pattern
Yeah.
developing.
So I will request that the town council attend our next meeting to address these issues about our ability to address parts of the charter.
Okay.
It may be in the building, because there's going to be one of those town meeting thingies. Let me just check.
Well, I will say April 13th is supposed to be our next meeting,
Yes.
and that is the 7th night of Passover, so I may not be here, and I would assume Bob Cohn also wouldn't be here if he,
Is that the last day?
it's the second to last night.
Okay, well, I
So
have,
the first two and the last two are holy days?
I mailed my Passover cards today, but I know it's 8 days, is it?
Yes.
We do have some Jewish Walshes, and I don't like to ignore anyone's holidays. That's also going to be when the town manager in the Great Hall is going to have his water, sewer, solid mass public information meeting. And the last public information meeting, town council was physically present. So I don't know if he'll be in the building on the 13th, so that that meeting's at 6. And if your meeting is at 7, he might be able to just drop in. But I can't.
I won't be available on the 13th either.
Okay, so should we try, I mean, I don't want to have meetings when people can't attend, especially for religious holidays. So if we pushed it out another week, let me.
I could do the 20th.
Let me just see if I can.
Oh, the following Thursday, the 20th?
Yeah.
That is
okay
school
on my
vacation week,
calendar.
just FYI for anybody.
What week is that?
The week of the 17th.
Is that school vacation?
That's school
It is
vacation
school
week.
vacation week, but,
I will be back, so I can make the 20th.
and I could do the 20th.
I can do the 20th.
Yeah, great.
Okay, can other people do the 20th?
I just want to be clear, organizational is the following Thursday after that, not that Thursday, right?
Right, it's the 27th.
Yes. Yeah, because we had originally scheduled one for that day and then realized it was organizational and canceled it. So we'll move it to the next meeting to the 20th. Okay. All right. And I will try to have town council attend that meeting.
It might be helpful if, you probably have a list of your specific questions, because it might be helpful to give them, or email, what you modern folks do. Either use our keyboard thingies and email your questions so that when he comes in, if he's willing to come to the meeting, he's got a preview and he can have some answers, so we don't sit around just jawing. Or what if?
Yeah.
You know.
And it really is addressing that one piece of the state law that says we can't
Yeah.
address these things. So
So I think they like to know what
Yeah.
they're walking into.
I will do that as well. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I make a motion to.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I really is very helpful to have a quorum here.
Even though I'm always 5 minutes late.
It's okay. You get here.
All right, good night.
All right.